Anyway, so begins the legend of Myst. Yeah, 20 years ago, right? I feel old because
You feel old.
I know. Well, you gotta
Yeah.
understand. I mean, I know.
Anybody have gray hair out there besides you? Sweet.
Yeah. I take it all of you have played Myst, right? Or at least, I mean, come on. I don't have to tell you what it is. And let it, yeah, okay. Yeah, you find a book, that book. You like have to use that book to go to different ages and, yeah, whatever, different worlds known as ages. So yeah, I'm Maria Harvey from Tale of Tales. I'll be your host, and this is the man himself, Rand Miller of Signed Worlds. And now we're going to try and take you by the hand and explore what it took to make this game and how its legacy can be of interest to indies working today. All right? So I remember, I'll just start with my little story real quick, that I remember playing Myst, like I guess in 94 or something. I don't remember how old I was, and I'm not going to say. But I remember playing it in the dark. Like it was sort of like my, I don't know, first introduction to what games were in a way. I wasn't a gamer. I'd played some arcade games, but this was the first time I would be like at home, come home, wrap myself in a blanket, kind of sitting at my desk, and play this game. And it was just so influential. It sort of made me all think, gosh, I could. This is such an artistic experience. It made me feel like so much more was possible with video games than the arcade games that I had seen before, and I found that really, really inspirational. Um, I'm not even sure I thought of it as a game, though, which is something that, people who know me and know Tale of Tales, it's something that we deal with a lot in our work, the notion of what is a game and what isn't. So I'm hoping we'll get to all of these ideas in our conversation. Just to also start out, I'm showing a little slide here of your, I don't know, tool, the paintbrush that you use, HyperCard.
Our evolution.
Yeah.
To a certain extent.
And these are screenshots, I guess, they're all from Cosmic Osmo, or is that one?
Got one from Manhole.
Manhole
and a
also,
couple
yeah.
From Osmo, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just showing that, I mean, these were drawn worlds, I guess were drawn by your brother.
Right.
Yeah, and these were also children's games, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Children of all ages.
Children of all ages, yeah.
It's a nice little.
But when you made Myst, you decided it would be definitely a game for adults.
We did.
Could you talk about that decision a bit? I mean, were you just sick of children's aesthetics, or I mean, yeah.
No, like any development effort you kind of fall into, it's got a mind of its own. It kind of evolves itself, and so we got into building worlds. I think we've said this numerous times, but we got into building worlds because HyperCard came out, which is the upper left up there, and it seemed like, oh, this is great. We could make an interactive storybook, and that was what I contacted my brother about. I'll make it short because I've said it before. He never got off the first page of the interactive book. He drew a fire hydrant and a manhole, and then opened the manhole and a vine grew up, and who cares what the next page was. I want to go down the manhole and I want to go to the fire hydrant, I want to climb up the vine, and so it became this world. And so it evolved. I mean, the world's got a little more sophisticated as we went from manhole to Osmo, and the stories got more sophisticated, and we started to tie things together rather than just have a certain randomness that if you play the manhole you realize it's random, and then that kind of led to a desire to say, I mean, it kind of led us, we were perfecting our craft enough where we thought, well, we can do something for an adult, lowercase a, adult audience. And that's where Myst came from.
Okay, because you went from that aesthetic to this, where you're truly trying to create something that resembles the real world. But I'm wondering, why, did you go from a drawn aesthetic into 3D?
Originally we were going to draw it.
Yeah.
We were going to draw Myst by hand. Robin was going to paint every image, and it was just timing. It was knowing your tools, knowing what your constraints are, knowing the technology, and working within those limitations. And it just so happened that the timing was right, that our limitations kind of opened up a bit.
Yeah,
and
3D wasn't all that common yet. I mean,
right. But we found a 3D software on the Mac. We were using Macs at the time, Stratavision.
Yeah.
And we did some test scenes. Robin and I both loved it, and so we made the decision, let's do it 3D rendered. And as luck would have it, it worked out great for us.
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing about Myst Island I mean, I have the map of Myst Island there. I mean, it's such an interesting space and place to be in, and it's almost like every screen was like a little postcard and from this imaginary place, and but it felt like not like a slideshow, but like full motion video. I mean, so in some ways it was like the world was in your head.
Yes.
And I found that effect a lot like reading a book at the time. Like, it was really strange. It was more book-like than movie-like, but at the same time, I really felt like I was there and immersed.
That's a great point.
So,
I mean, we found out that people's minds filled in all the blanks. We talked to people, years after playing, and they were like, "Oh, I love the clouds on Myst Island." It's like, well, there were none. So we loved them too, but that was in your mind.
Yeah.
But it's exactly what you're saying.
But I think that's sort of the magic of like a lower tech gaming experience. I don't know, and it's something I still really appreciate, actually.
Yeah.
But the aesthetic of this world, I mean, it's like, it's kind of blocky, but and it didn't look realistic, and you had the hand already.
Yeah.
And that's something that, maybe you didn't invent it, but it just really felt like you were there touching things in the world.
And we didn't want much more than that. It was we were making stuff up as we went along. I mean, I'd like to say that we were geniuses in what we did, but the timing was right. We had evolved to the right stage.
Mm-hmm.
The CD-ROM was coming out, 3D software, so a lot of stuff fell into place for us. But we also didn't have. We were really indie at the time. We didn't have a publisher who was telling us what to do, and we said, well, what if you don't die? And what if we don't put anything else on the screen but just the cursor for the most part? You just get your information from the cursor, and there's no menus really. It's just you and the screen. And so we were pushing things only because we could. It was just the two of us designing.
Yeah, two brothers, and you make a game, a story about two brothers. No coincidences there.
Well, it's handy when your actors are the two guys making the game. And you don't have to.
But I mean, that's really indie. I mean, you put yourself in your own game. I think that's
Yep.
really great.
Yeah, indie is a very nice way to say it. If you could see the basement where we filmed it, it was beyond indie.
And so your design process, that was like a real back and forth between you and your brother. Huh?
Yeah.
It's like, I remember you saying like that he would draw something and then you would figure out what to do in that part of the world or something like that.
Yeah, it was
it
was back and forth between the two of us, but it was also iterative on the paper. It was just a big blank piece of paper, and we didn't know how to do this. So we thought of it as an architectural project. So we started with a map, and I remember Robin drawing the dock. It's like, well, we knew it was an island because an island could constrain where you would go, and we didn't want there to be places that it looked like you could go that you couldn't go. We had played some games previously that had alleys. It's like, well, I should go down that alley. Oh, I can't go down that alley. Well, why not? So an island was a great way to constrain that. So the dock. Drew a square of the dock, and then we started some steps up. And the interesting thing was, as we were drawing the map, essentially, we began to draw buildings, and that made us think of stories, which made us think of puzzles, and it was this tripod that reinforced each other. I mean, you draw a little more, and it makes you think of a puzzle, which makes you think of a story, which lets you draw a little more, and it really fed on, each leg fed on the other.
Very organic.
Until the island kind of started fleshing itself out.
Yeah. So what were the division of tasks between you all?
It was actually, we're a great team to work together, like we had been on the children's stuff. I'm the programmer guy, if you can call hypercard programming. So easy. I just love that environment. But I grew up being the geeky computer guy, and Robin was more artistic, doing the art and the music, but he knew enough about programming that he could call my bluff when I said, oh, we can't do that. He'd say, oh, yes, you can. And I knew enough about art to call his bluff when I said, this shadow's wrong. And he'd go, yes, no, it's not. And I'd go, yes, it is. And so we really challenged each other, and it was good. We pushed each other in the right ways because of our skill set.
And HyperCard at the time, if you guys didn't know it, it was based on like card stacks where you could, what was it? You would have the screen and you would just assign interactivity, but it was like very I don't
so
know,
intuitive.
almost real time in a way.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
I
yeah,
remember
yeah,
you
yeah.
telling me that you were testing it and changing things on the fly.
Absolutely. With the early games, even with Manhole, Myst also, but with
Mhm.
Manhole, Robin would send a picture, we would link it, and we could start walking through the world. The world
Yeah.
would grow as we added an image in real time. And same thing with Myst. I'd get an image from Robin, put it in, connect buttons, and boom, the world was
Yeah.
bigger. One image bigger.
So it was sort of a serendipitous time where this software allowed you to make something, you know?
Absolutely.
Were you much more into programming? Like, could you have programmed like from scratch? Or I mean, why the choice of HyperCard at first?
Because it's what we knew.
Mhm.
And I think any design project, I mean, particularly from an indie point of view, which I keep coming back to because that's what we did, is about knowing your limitations. It's about figuring out the box you're in and doing everything you can within that box. And it feels nice to think that you don't have a box and you don't have limitations, but if you try and design with that without limitations, you're not really going to get anything. And those limitations helped us really tune things to that, to what we were using. And so we did things. I mean, the industry itself was moving toward real time, but in our with Doom and
We're gonna get into
the
that in a
whole
minute.
end of things, but we liked where we had come from, and we felt like we could do good things within those limitations.
Yeah. Well, I find it interesting that you call Myst an architectural project because I found this picture online. Does that still exist?
It does.
This is the entryway to Cyan World's HQ. I mean, and it looks.
Right.
I mean, I'm sorry, but come on. Wow.
Yeah, that's the house that Myst.
I mean, it's the
right?
it's the aesthetic of Strata Vision or something brought into like real life. I just thought that was crazy, so I had to stick it in.
It was fun. That was probably the most fun thing about the building was kind of extruding that brick wall from the.
I just thought this was hilarious. It's really cool that you guys. I don't know. It's almost like you had such a commitment to the world that you wanted to make it like in real life.
Oh, we had a lot of money then too.
Charming.
I mean, I wish I had that money back for that thing.
Oh.
Do a few indie products like that.
How many games could you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Anyway. So yeah. Okay. Just a few meta ideas that occurred to me. It's like you have this sort of connection. The top two screenshots are from the games, but then the bottom are things that fans have made.
Yeah.
I mean, you have made like quite an interesting like fan community that doesn't die. I mean, it's like this game just keeps going on and being reinvented or rediscovered in a sense.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but I also loved that in the game. I guess because of all the references to books and me feeling like I was reading a book while I was playing. I mean, what's up with that? Why books? Why this connection between? I guess what really resonated for me actually was this old technology brought into a new technology.
Yeah.
And that was really compelling at the time, I feel.
It was great. I mean, I'd like to, once again, we were artistic geniuses and we knew from the beginning we were going to use books because of the wonderful metaphor and blah, blah, blah. But when we first designed, and a lot of this you see, we originally thought, well, there'd be these images of these guys and images of that we would places that we would go and we'll just put them on a monitor, a TV thing or something. I don't know. And then at some point, as it started to evolve and mature, we realized that was kind of trivial and ridiculous, and we were trying to think of a wonderful portal, and it was books. And as soon as we said it, it was like, of course.
Yeah.
But it maintained some of that, retained some of that static kind of video production from what the original concept was as well.
It actually made me think of Shakespeare at the time too, like Prospero's books and Tempest and all that. So it was sort of that. I liked all these connections that were possible to make.
Yeah, it's a great magical connection. The bottom right book in that image is amazing. We have that in the vault at Cyan, and it's crazy.
And is that a fan?
A fan, yeah.
It actually made a book with the video in it, and
And it's actually got all the games in it, and I think it's got the text of the novels in it, and and if you touch it, you link. That's why we keep it in the vault.
Because it's dangerous. Yeah. I mean, at the time, there was other technological things that happened. I mean, there was the invention of QuickTime or the introduction of QuickTime. So you were one of the first games to have these little FMV, full motion. I mean,
Yeah,
you have
postage
these
stamp
postage
videos.
stamp
Yeah.
videos. I mean, what was the sort of idea with that? I mean,
Um, we weren't sure when we started the game. We weren't sure how we were going to do video. We knew we had some backup plans, and I think that's always a good thing to do. Well, you know, we can have some things up there that'll move. We're just not sure if we can have
yeah,
nice video. And QuickTime came out. It was like, great, that will substitute for our backup plan. And we know that we needed small postage stamp size plugs, and those elevator windows got small enough so that you were, you know,
yeah. But it really
just
made
seeing
me feel
out.
like, I mean, in those moments, like, wow, I'm actually in an elevator. I'm moving.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
Yeah.
so it was like strategically placed.
And once again, it's designing with your limitations.
Yeah.
Instead of looking at it as a limitation, you just, well, the design's going to have to fit this. We have this much video, so yeah, we can make that work.
Let's see what else I got here. Oh yeah, these are the
Wow.
yeah the legacy, the whole lineage of the game.
That's why I
You
have
got
gray
Myst
hair.
and- yeah, you have Myst and Riven, which was, I guess, definitely you guys alone, or Riven perhaps slightly bigger team because
Yeah,
you know,
much bigger team.
Yeah,
Because it was
because-
money.
Yeah,
And that's how
exactly.
this always works.
I mean, you made Myst and it just blew up
Yeah.
basically, and
Oh,
you
yeah, we were
sold
so surprised.
what, like 6 million copies of this
Yeah.
game. I mean,
Yeah.
which is crazy, and
Which is crazy.
but you weren't expecting that, I
No,
bet.
no. I remember the conversation. Robin probably said this in his talk, but I remember a conversation saying, "Man, if we could just sell 100,000, 100,000 would be awesome. That would be great."
Yeah.
And it just went crazy, much to our surprise.
Yeah. But then after that, you got Myst Exile, and like that was a publisher deal, or what? Like
That
what
was
happened after Riven?
Product that was never going to happen
Mm-hmm.
because we said, "Oh, we're done." Riven was all, and my brother went on to exploring movies and linear medium, and I went on to Myst Online, thinking, well, I don't want this to end. I want to build a bigger world that's more alive.
Yeah.
And we said we don't really need a sequel. That Riven told the story, but yeah.
Yeah.
The opportunity arose, and
No, I see.
and actually the whole design was put in front of us, and we said, "This is
Pretty
kinda
good.
nice. It's not bad at all." And I'll use that money to go toward Myst Online, and so yeah. we
Yeah, because
said,
it sort of went like, all right, just sort of thinking how this went. I mean, Myst was pre-rendered always, I guess, and then you've got Riven that was also pre-rendered.
Right.
But then but Myst 3 was made by different developers, and then you go into Uru, and suddenly it's real time with an avatar.
Right.
I think that's weird.
Right,
Like
and that's-
suddenly you have an avatar. Like,
exactly.
what? I mean, we can talk more about Uru later. I have like a better, more in-depth moment, but. Was Myst 5 End of Ages, was that also real time then?
There's a long story here that involves a lot of nastiness and
really?
publishers and
Yeah.
evil, and
Okay.
I'm sure you don't want to hear it. I want to hear the nice
Well, I
little
mean-
developer complaining about a publisher. You probably don't hear that very much. So anyway, it was doing what we could at the time. Honestly, we're a small shop, and it's kind of rare these days, but we've managed to stay alive,
Yeah.
up and down, and we've managed to keep almost everybody who's worked for us, still in touch and like us, so we care about the employees. The population of employees goes up and down. Myst 5 was something that kind of kept us alive after a very, someday we'll do a postmortem on it, but a very traumatic experience with Myst Online.
Right,
And it allowed us to use resources and stay alive, and that to us was important.
Well, I think the interesting thing about Myst itself, or the first two games, Myst and Riven, is that I found online this list that said it's on 3DO, Amiga OS, CDI, iOS, Jaguar, CD, Mac OS, Nintendo DS, PlayStation, PSP, Saturn, Sega Saturn, Windows Mobile. I mean, I find that really fascinating because part of the problem with making technological art games, games in general, is that the technology decays really quickly from generation to generation, and yet you're sort of, by taking it from one platform to the next to the next to the next, it sort of keeps the game alive. And in a way, I think that's really, I mean, I really think that's important because it sort of keeps the history alive. There's so many games that can't be played now,
Right.
and it's kind of cool that Myst still can be, even in its original form or as real Myst, you
Right.
know, or But why do you keep porting it to this new?
You know, some of those ports are shoehorned, and some of them are really good. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, it's
The iOS port is really good.
the iOS one was close to our hearts, and that's why we did that. It's funny you mentioned the cursor. I mean, the
Yeah.
cursor was a hand, and so when there's this great platform that's touch interface, you know,
Yeah.
and it feels like you're taking a layer of abstraction out when the hand cursor becomes your hand.
Yeah.
And your finger actually touches and moves. So it felt like a really natural thing. And
Yeah.
once again, that came at a great time for us to kind of employ people, build things up a little bit. And we view the mobile platform has lent itself well. Some of those were definitely shoehorned, and if you bought any of them and didn't like them, I had nothing to do with them. It was some other person, I'm sure, who, and even to be honest with you, we were surprised with the early, some of the early consoles that Myst was ported to, because we really had designed it with a mouse in mind. It was tactile, and you touched it and you moved, and so playing it with a controller wasn't always the best experience. You know, it depending on how it was implemented was better or worse. But yeah, it was easier for us to take on some of those, the ones that we felt closer to, and let other people do the platform translation.
No, that makes
in other cases.
Yeah.
And everybody wanted it, you know.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a big hit, and it's like, no, we're gonna put Myst on
everything.
Yeah.
I mean, these slides are kind of other games, but just to set up, this is something that I've thought about a lot. I mean, at the time in the 90s, I guess between like 1993 and like 1997, there was no internet, obviously. I mean, there was an internet for only part of that, but in the beginning, 1993, when Myst came out, no internet, no web, you know, and so there were all these games that were not games as such, but they were sort of like dreams for adults, in my opinion. And there were a lot of them. I mean, there's this one, The Dark Eye, which is actually an interpretation of Edgar Allan Poe. I mean, I'm just wondering if you were, like, in the scene that was around at that time, like, what were you into?
We weren't gamers. Well, I was more of a gamer than Rob, and he definitely wasn't a gamer. But we were influenced by stuff even earlier. When we were doing Myst, we lost touch with everything because we were so intent on doing it. We kind of didn't have our finger on the pulse. But earlier, we had played Zork and some of those early text games. I think there was one. Well, I don't remember. You started in a stall of a bathroom. That's all I remember.
Yeah.
You kind of had to explore your way out. Anybody remember the name of that? What was it?
No.
I don't think
This is
so.
like
No.
before.
Yeah.
I mean, this is.
Yeah, I'm looking for the gray hair guy.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, this is way back. And then there were other ones that led up to what we were doing that we always, you know, as we were building Myst, it was funny because it was initially funded by a Japanese company we have a partnership with, Sunsoft, and they were. Things like The Seventh Guest were coming out. I don't know if anybody knows that. And there was an interesting project in Japan called the L Zone, and some real experimental stuff where people were building worlds to explore. And they kept asking us, now, is it going to be as good as this? Is it going to be as good as this? Is this going to be as good as this?
Right.
And Hellcab. I mean, there's all these people experimenting with stuff, and we were like, oh yeah, it's going to be bad. Yeah, this is awesome. And we'd be like, what is that?
Yeah.
What are they talking about? And we'd look a little bit and we'd think, oh yeah, I think we're as good as that. I think we're doing okay.
Yeah.
So we were influenced, but in a way that that wasn't damaging. And what I mean by that is you can react to what other people are doing, and it's good to put that through a filter of your own, so it has your own feel to it.
Yeah.
Your own. You don't let the judges tell you what to do when you've got a voice and you kind of feeling pretty strongly about it, but you still want to listen to them.
Yeah.
You just don't want to automatically take what they say.
I think the interesting thing for me about this time in video game history is that all these games were so different from each other. I mean, there was this whole diversity of games, and they were what you say, games for adults in a way. I mean, they were, and they sort of didn't necessarily have to have combat. I mean, you didn't invent adventure games, you
Right.
popularized it, but at the same time, it was like this interesting diverse way that people were playing different stories, different experiences.
Hmm.
I mean, especially a game like Cosmology of Kyoto or The Last Express, where it's just, you're
Yeah.
playing the story and
Oh
it's
yeah.
really
Well,
beautiful.
you felt like it wasn't a game.
Right.
It was a world. It was a place. It felt like
Yeah.
you were doing something different than what traditionally gaming had been. The friction was different, and the story was, there was something richer there and deeper there. You were pulling a little more out of it, and we hesitated to call what we were doing a game. We kept referring to it as a world. We're building a world because we wanted it to feel like you were going to a real place, and all those things kind of felt along that same line, like people were experimenting with that idea
Yeah.
of building a
And I think
place.
that what happened after Myst, you have games like Zork Nemesis and Obsidian, and to a lesser extent Eve, which was made by Real World Games, where it's like, all of a sudden it became the thing to make these Myst clones. I wouldn't call it even Myst clone, but they were still these playful worlds. I mean, Zork Nemesis had a very strong like misty feel to it, but then you get into Obsidian and it was just absurd and like, but it still was the same pre-rendered point and click. It became. I mean, I imagine an alternate history of video games where the sort of spirit of all of these things, where it was about playful environments that didn't. I mean, yeah, there may be or may not be puzzles. Like in the case of Eve, it's not exactly puzzles. It's more like you're just clicking around and things are happening. It sort of well, someone was mentioning earlier your first game, Cosmic Osmo,
Yeah.
like had a lot of that, where it's
Right.
just a really playful environment and you discover the game within
Yeah.
it. But I mean, the Myst clones. I mean, after a while, it became a bit of a plague. I mean, of like every game had to sort of be a little bit like Myst, or a lot like Myst.
Right.
And I mean, how did you feel like suddenly to be to have, I don't know, influence things to such an extent that that people are making clones of your game?
Yeah, we were kind of excited. I mean,
Yeah.
to be honest with you, we thought that things would kind of fork at that point with entertainment, and there'd be a whole fork of this exploration or adventure or world games or whatever you want to call them. These things that drove you forward with curiosity of what was around the next corner. And we thought there would be some really good ones that publishers would fund. There'd be big money in this and be some stuff we'd be excited to play. And there were some decent things coming out, but it felt like it just kind of dribbled off after that.
Yeah.
And I think we had both raised the bar for that kind of exploration game, and I don't know whether it was raised enough or people got scared or publishers got scared. It seems like publishers do things that are more of a sure thing, and they still weren't sure about what this thing was about. How they couldn't measure the number of units they would sell. They only knew Myst did a bunch, and
so they kept trying.
the marketing departments, tried a few things, and they maybe didn't sell well, so it just kind of dribbled off.
But you mentioned that you played Doom at the time also, and then you really dug that. Did you dig that for the world also?
Yeah, I mean that whole idea of real time. I've been, those of you who are really old gray hairs, Battlezone was an arcade game that was, vector graphics, just green lines.
Yeah.
But I remember the feeling of being, whoa, I'm in a tank in a world. My brain filling in all the blanks for me, but that idea of real time was always exciting to me.
Yeah.
And so Doom and all the ones that were, people who were starting to push that technology on kind of a parallel track. I was looking at that technology thinking, well, man, real-time 3D is eventually you can make more real worlds. They will feel more real.
I mean, it feels to me a bit like Doom kind of won, like for a long time, where it was like, oh, games are these like, sort of solidifying or gelling like what a video game is, like, and taking it away from it being like, oh, a game can be this very playful thing. Because I think, I mean, in the sense of it not having a strict, predictable kind of gameplay, and more about exploration of a world.
Right. Instead of the achievement, Doom kind of pushed it more toward achievement. It's like you gotta kill something, you gotta level up, you've gotta destroy a certain number to get a score, and that's traditional kind of gameplay mechanism. But it definitely pushed it that direction instead of the other way.
Yeah, I kind of feel like when the web came along, it sort of took some of that, the CD-ROM aspect, the exploration aspect. I know in my case, when I first saw the internet, I was like, oh, I can make Myst with this, which is a silly thing to say, but I really felt that. And then I started getting into like VRML and like weird things because I felt like it had to be this like, I don't know, it was just really the first thing I thought of. I mean, so how did you feel about the web when you saw it?
Well, yeah, I mean, after the web, I looked at after Myst as, well, this allows me to deliver content so that the exploration never ends. I can just make the world bigger. It doesn't stop. And that was kind of what drove us after Riven to start the Myst Online stuff.
These are like screenshots from Myst Online.
So the idea was, instead of a massively multiplayer game, which, of course it was called, but it was, instead of playing with thousands of your closest friends, you could define how big the group size was. The internet didn't say you had to run across strangers. It just said I could play with my friend from across the country in a very intimate setting if I wanted to, and we liked that. Or by yourself, frankly. But what we really thought was interesting was the broadband element that allowed the game to grow, and it allowed the story to be told, and it allowed you to put actors and storylines in real time in the game. So that, I mean, the whole point was that every time you came back, something new would happen. If you came back every night, something new was there. If you came back every week, something even bigger. If every month, which I think would coincide with your monthly payment, there was something much larger. And I still think that's a great idea. That's what people are used to when they watch TV. They want something new every night, and they want,
So you guys were actively adding things to the world, or was it just unlocking things as you every time?
Oh, it was both. We had, oh my goodness. Well, this could go off into a long haul, but basically we had set up a lot of stuff to kind of build this as a studio. So Myst Online would have a lot of stuff in the pipeline that would be added to the mix, and we had a lot of stuff. We had a year's worth of content ready when Myst Online was ready to go live to roll out, including ages and actors and storylines and lots of things that would be played out, and just kind of went, macheted at that point. So
that's sad. But okay, so last bit of questions, and then I'm going to open it up to the audience. All right, so this is a screenshot from one of the later Myst games, but I mean, okay, now you can make games with millions of polygons. You can have VR. I don't know if you've tried the Oculus Rift.
Oh yeah.
And are you interested in this new tech at all? Like, does this still give you like lots of ideas?
It's an interesting balance, because the new technology, Myst, in some ways, we stumbled into something with Myst that was really intriguing, and that was accessibility. Anybody could play Myst, and that was one of the reasons it did well. We didn't necessarily think that was going to be the thing, but frankly, you put somebody in front of a mouse with a cursor like this with a picture on the screen, and they just click. You don't have to really tell them what to do. And the more technology, or the more buttons you give people and the more controllers you give them, the more complicated it gets, and the more you kind of limit your audience and have more of a, I'll call it a niche, but it's a pretty big niche still, but it still is not the mass market that maybe Myst was able to appeal to. So that said, every time you add another element like Oculus Rift or real-time 3D, you have a little more complexity that you do have a growing base who knows how to use, but you're also limiting a few more people on the edges. Yeah.
If you were making Myst today, would you make it more of an audiovisual experience, or would you put the puzzles in still, or would there be more? Would there be less? I mean, what would you do now?
Yeah, we've learned from both Myst and Riven, and Myst Online as well. And I'd like to think we were geniuses at this point, but still, for some reason, we just haven't gotten there. I don't get how this works. You'd think with gray hair, I'd be a genius, could just crank this stuff out. But we learned from Myst that the puzzles were both too hard and too easy. So with Riven, we made them harder and easier, and it wasn't, it was too hard then and too easy then. So we thought we had all these great formulas from Myst that we could improve Riven with, and I don't know that there's a formula. It's a fluid thing to develop things, and you watch as people play this thing, as they explore, you watch what they do, and they do things you don't expect, and it's really amazing to watch people in your world. I mean, that's what we learned from. That's what we do. Again, we just had Real Myst on Oculus Rift, and we were wandering around in there. It's a really cool feeling. and then you go throw up in the bathroom, and then you come back
Yeah.
and play some more. But it feels like you're there in some really amazing ways that I don't know if it's palpable and sellable, but it's another level that's intriguing.
Oh, that's cool. Well, okay. New projects? Anything coming up? What are you guys doing?
Yeah, we've been we've been keeping ourselves alive, which is unusual for an independent developer, and we've had a lot of people employed, and we've had a few people employed, but we've managed to kind of stay alive, sometimes barely. But the mobile market has helped us kind of at least get a foothold by converting that stuff, and I like to think it was a natural thing for us, and it worked. But we've got some bigger ideas. Some of them we've had for a while that we'd love to do, and publishers were kind of like, yeah, we want something new and different, and we show them, and they go, no,
not like that.
No, that's not it.
Well, I mean, you could self-publish now.
We could, and the interesting thing now is, frankly, we've gotten used to being in control of things. The whole App Store model and Steam is so refreshing. And you know what? We're not rich, and we're not making tons of money, and lots of that old money's gone. But just having kind of control and owning your destiny and being able to do what you want it's very satisfying. When there was a company of 50 people, it feels like you lose a little control and you lose touch, and when people would come into work and I'm like, wait, who are you? I don't even know who you are, and that's weird. I like people, and I like the employees we work with, and it just things got weird. And smaller groups with maintaining some form of control is a good thing. So Kickstarter to me is an awesome opportunity, well. And so we're putting together something for a larger project on Kickstarter.
Cool. All right, so that should be interesting. I mean, I for one am happy that you went to the mobile market also, just because I could go, wow, they have Myst for my iPad.
That's how I feel. Like, if people are like, Myst, how do you play that now? Before I was like, I don't know, it doesn't work on anything anymore. Now I can pull up my phone. It's right
keep it alive as long as you can. I mean, I think it's important, just because people hear like Myst, what's that? Oh, I can go and play this game. So I don't know. Thank you for this conversation. That's the end of the formal part of it. I hope you guys have questions, because now it's your turn. Please.